Do one episode. Yeah, we're live now. We are live. Do you want to give us a countdown?
All right, recording in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Dune Saga podcast. I'm David Moulton.
And I am Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood.
And on this episode, we're going to be discussing Children of Dune.
Yay!
Children is the third book in the original series, and it takes place directly after Winds of Dune, written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. Or if you go by the original accounts, it takes place roughly 12-ish years after Dune Saga, right? 12, 13?
Children are 9.
They're 9.
So 9 years, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah. Basic plot lines of this is we're following Alia's descent into abomination, while both Leto and Ganima, Paul's children, kind of come into their own and realize the dangers of being pre-born and dealing with the pressures and paths set out by their father and what they're going to do next.
Right. And we're following the end of Paul's journey.
Yes.
And that's the other part of this that we kind of explore a little bit. Now, you called this the original, the original trilogy of Dune. Many times when you look at a trilogy, everyone hails the first member in the trilogy, and then the middle child kind of runs the curse of being the bridge between the first and the last, and then the third one's always, again hailed as being the book. How do you feel, David or Jim? How do you feel this holds up in that sort of framework, or doesn't it, or don't you put it in, or can't you put that into the frame? Can't you put this into the framework?
Well, it's not like Star Wars, where the middle one is the one everyone talks about.
It is.
Well, for me, I feel like it starts off very much reminiscent of Dune Saga. Kind of like, I don't know if legalistic is the right word, but just still very flat, monotone-ish kind of information that's just being fed to you. It doesn't really get that Dune vibe until about a quarter of the way into the book, and that's where I think it really starts to make that transition back into the back to the way that Dune felt for me. So I think it does. I guess if you really look at it, it goes into a dip and then comes back up.
Jim, any thoughts on that?
Not on that particular idea, but I'll tell you what, I really had to slog through the first half of this one. I mean, it was, this happened, blah, 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 blah. That happened, blah, 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 blah. I think the opening part of the book just kind of dragged and dragged and dragged for a long time. I had a tough time getting through it.
Yeah. Are you
Yeah, I was going to say, you might want to check his mic because I don't hardly hear him. Sounds like he's talking across the room.
Yeah, you're not on. I guess pause this. Can I pause it and start it back up? Speak now.
Check.
Yeah, there you go.
That's better.
Check.
All right. Yeah, hopefully that'll speak now.
Chat, test.
Can you hear him now? Can you hear him now?
Better. Much
All
better.
Right. I couldn't hear myself, so I was like,
Do we, since you introduced the show, we aren't that far in, do we want to go back and just restart?
Yeah, let's just restart. Are we okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Do you want me just to start a new file?
Yeah, let's just.
All right. Stop.
Okay, hang on. Let me get the same thing.
Hey, stop it.
Okay, I'm rolling on a new one.
Check. Okay,
yep, we're rolling. Go ahead, give us a count.
And 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Dune Saga podcast. I'm David Moulton.
And I am Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood.
And on this episode of the Dune Saga podcast, we are discussing Children of Dune.
Dun, 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 dun.
The third book in what's considered the original trilogy by Frank Herbert. It follows directly after the book of Winds of Dune, which is written by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson, or it's 9 years after Dune Messiah, written by Frank Herbert.
Very nice, very nice. And follow the end of Paul.
Yes,
in here.
End of Paul.
End of Paul.
The basic line of the story is we follow Alia's descent into abomination.
Oh yeah.
Kind of the Empire's kind of struggling a bit. Both Ganima and Leto, Paul's kids, are kind of trying to come out of their father's shadow, while at the same time dealing with the fear of becoming abomination.
Yeah.
So that's the
story really is about Leto the second, though.
Yeah.
I mean, really have that, and it's about it. And Ganima, I'm used to the narrator pronouncing Ganima, so I'm like, wait, so that's all right. There's different pronunciations. That works. I'm a bit torn in this book because I read this book now having watched Children of Dune. And of the miniseries, when you watch it, Children of Dune resonates stronger with me than Dune.
Yeah.
But I'm not certain that if I look at the books together, that Dune doesn't resonate stronger. It's just that I'm kind of cursed by the fact that I've loved Children of Dune. I can't wait till we go and watch the miniseries our next episode and work with it. Only because I have such fond memories of getting it and just plugging the music and listening to the music at work and what I do, and just it's so majestic and yeah.
Yeah, I have trouble with the visuals. Like they'll say so and such looks a place like this, and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't remember seeing that in the miniseries.
No. The curse about making literature of any sort into a movie is that once you see it, it's really hard to divorce yourself from what you've seen and see how the author maybe wrote it.
Right.
But so we mentioned this, or we talked about this a little bit briefly, but so this is a trilogy, right? With the original trilogy, I don't know if it was the first ever trilogy, but the original trilogy from Frank Herbert, and it was, so we have Dune, we have Dune Messiah, and Children of Dune, and many times when you look at a trilogy, you're the first book that kind of starts everything, and everything's introduced, and the book, the story begins to take off. Then the middle book's kind of sometimes looked at as being the bastard child of a trilogy because it's the one that connects everything. And ties everything together, but nothing much happens. But then you have Children of Dune, where we get resolution to everything. And how do you feel this Dune trilogy, Frank, fits into that mold, if it does?
To me, I felt like he started the book off where he left with Dune Messiah, that same tone of very kind of flat information kind of just being given to you. It didn't feel like a lot of emotion. But about a quarter of the way through the book, for me, it kind of took off into the same feeling of Dune. That Dune resonated with me. This kind of powerful, more groundbreaking kind of things mattered again. So I guess to me, it's kind of like you go up the roller coaster and you go down for a while and you go back up right at the end. So that's kind of how I saw these three books.
Jim, how about you?
Yeah, I felt at the end of it, for one thing, that it was a little open-ended to call it a trilogy. I mean, obviously, as you finish the story, there's going to be more.
Yeah.
You can't talk as much about the golden path as the book did and then not do something with that. I had some trouble with the book, though. Even contacted David one day. We were on our way to a vocal clinic, and I'm trying to read this, and the exposition I just felt was a little bit too long in this book.
Mm.
I mean, the exposition seemed to be like half the book, so I had a little bit of trouble getting into it.
Wow, cool.
What did you think, Scott?
As far as the whole trilogy idea, I really enjoyed Dune. I did not mind Dune Messiah as much as some people did, and I liked Children of Dune, but again, I I had expectations as to where this story was going.
Yeah.
Because the miniseries was fairly fresh. Like fresher than when I originally read Children of Dune. So I think those expectations and maybe the fact I was running and I was doing other things as I was listening to the book, that this didn't bother me per se. It certainly doesn't. I think for me, if we look at the trilogy, the first book remains my favorite of the trilogy. Well, we're going to go and I'm not going to rate it now because we're going to do that later on the show. But the first one remains like my favorite in the trilogy. Children of Dune, though, was real good in where they take it. To see the ascent of Alia was incredibly fun. To see the children and how they kind of manifest themselves, and to see the transformation of Leto II. Yeah. These are all things that were fascinating to kind of see. Yeah. So,
well, here's a question for you. How do you feel about it as a fourth book in a series?
It's not the fourth book in the series.
Yeah. Well, if you read it like we're reading it, it's book number 4. I know we just talked about it original.
Right. Well, here's the thing. If you read it just by itself, you see the descent. Alia has already turned and is already entertaining the Baron in her head and descending into her own private hell. Right. What you get with Winds of Dune is that you get that idea introduced, and you see the turn. And if depending on what you're looking at, if you're looking at the story of Alia, if you look at the story of Alia and her transformation, I almost can't separate Children of Dune, people are going to hate me for saying this, from Winds of Dune. Like the stories are really so connected if you're looking at Alia's story. Or Alia. So you got me saying Alia now. Alia's story from beginning to end, and the way she transformed into the abomination and tosses herself out the window at the end. It's in that story itself, and watching it's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
I would have to agree.
Yeah. I think that Winds of Dune gives you a little bit more of a window into how her personality is more open to the same types of things that the Baron is interested in. Because in Winds of Dune, she starts grabbing for power. Like, they see that in her. It's noted. And so that's to me makes more sense that she would fall prey to the Baron when he emerges.
Right.
To me, Alia is the embodiment of obsession.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's obsessed with power. She's obsessed with killing her enemies. She gets on one thing and she stays with it.
Yeah. No doubt. I wonder. Let me just put this out. For someone that has maybe never read Dune before, and they're coming into the Dune series, and you say, well, you know what? We're going to start with the original trilogy. Would you tell them that they should read Winds of Dune before reading a Children of Dune? Do you think it would give Children of Dune a richer experience for them? Or would you say, no, do the original, do a Dune Messiah, and then Children of Dune?
That is a hard question.
Yeah, you're opening a big can of worms there.
I know I am, but there's something to be said. We had this discussion when we read Dune.
Yeah.
When we read Dune, we said, does the fact that we know all this history, that obviously changed our perception of Dune in some way? Did that make it less of an experience, more of an experience for us? I think the jury's out. But the thing is, I think especially since you have such an open, as you were saying, that core of the book, halfway through the book, all this is exposition. The fact that you add Winds of Dune as maybe the pretext to it, does that help?
Okay. If they've never read Dune before, I would have a hard time saying that, just because Brian Herbert and Kevin G. Anderson's writing is so different that I wouldn't want that to interfere with them maybe getting caught up into it. However, if they were going to, like, oh, I want to know everything, and I'm going to read Paul of Dune as well, then...
Well, yeah, I guess what I'm thinking, not so much stylistically. I'm thinking more story.
Right.
So I'm thinking like the context of, for example, Alia and her transformation. Like we kind of jump in. We're in the middle of the transformation when we're in Children of Dune. We don't get introduced to that. Yeah. Whereas Winds of Dune gives us the kind of we able to see her from beginning of Winds of Dune to the end of Children of Dune transform. I'm not saying that this is the way I'm suggesting doing it. I'm just saying, do you think that would be... Roland's disagreeing with us in the chat stream, said absolutely not, no way, not a chance in Hades about we're going to do that.
Yeah, well, he also said that if he had a choice, he would just say, read Winds of Dune.
All right.
Nothing else.
Oh, he did say, he said that. Winds of Dune is his favorite book of all time. It's good. Roland, curse you. I should like boot him from the chat room right now. No. No.
What do you think, Jim? You take over.
All right. Well, let's see. The first time I read Dune, years and years and years ago, I read, of course, the other books weren't available. I think I enjoyed Children of Dune more at that time, but I wasn't anywhere near as busy as I am now. Okay? So... would the other books help? Yes. Brian and Kevin's books did help fill in some blanks for me while I was reading. So if someone were to ask me, I would tell them to read the books exactly as we are reading them.
Very good.
What's your answer?
I don't necessarily have an answer here. There's no doubt this way through. I'm always thinking I'm very much in agreement with Jim here. Yeah. I think that if you're gonna, if what you want is to understand the fullness of the universe and be immersed in all aspects of the universe, and to get a full picture of Dune's place in the universe, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, there's no doubt that understanding the history as extrapolated by Kevin G. Anderson and Brian Herbert has made that experience of reading Dune Messiah, and Children of Dune a richer experience. Yeah. That being said, on the other token, it does take away a little bit of the mystery, a little bit of the unknown. You come upon references, if you would have read it without having that base, that you'd be saying that would cause you to question and maybe debate among your friends and have discussions with, that you in a sense can't have now, that's been taken away because you have read the history and the understanding of it. And so I'm a personal fan. I love immersing myself into the world. I don't always need to have. In fact, when I hit those points in like Frank Herbert's Dune and Children of Dune and so on, I'm saying, oh yeah, that's a reference to back when the Bene Gesserit, and back when the Butlerian Jihad, and that sort of thing gets me into it. It may not everyone. Other people may dislike that mystery. So if you're a fan of reading a book, and I guess I would say if you're a fan of reading a book and being okay with not knowing of references being dropped in the book and not knowing necessarily all those references, you certainly don't lose anything from the main story of Dune or Children of Dune or Dune Messiah. Mm-hmm. But having the if you like knowing background information as you read the book, then you will be frustrated by not knowing some things.
And then, of course, then there's the opposite direction, reading Brian and Kevin's books and not reading Frank Herbert's books.
there is that.
That wouldn't work.
No, that wouldn't work. I don't think we're advocating that.
But I think you hit a point here. I gave Winds of Dune a very high rating, and it was because of the exact thing that you're just saying. The fact that I had read these and had the mystery in my mind of what fit in there, and Winds of Dune filled that gap.
Oh yeah.
Just the way I wanted. So like you, if you want to read a story and you're going to start at Dune and not read all the extra stuff, but you're just going to start at Dune, and you're that type of person, definitely read Winds of Dune. But if that's not a big thing for you, then just stick with the Frank Herbert 3, and you're good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Well, that was kind of a tangent here. We should probably move in. Did we even talk about our overall Did we talk about our overall impressions? Is this kind of have we given that sort of?
I don't know. Well, I enjoyed the book.
Yeah, yeah, I did too. It was a good book, interesting ending.
Yeah.
I
love the transformation of Leto.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite characters. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing like a slug controlling the world. But.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I guess maybe sandworm. But how about you, Jim?
I didn't enjoy it as much. I don't think.
Sounds like we're gonna get a good rating out of Jim this week.
I had a tough time, as I said, just absolutely slogging through this thing. At least the first half of it. When I got into the second half and there was more story, a little more action, and a little more focus on what was happening in the book itself, rather than recalling pasts and things like that, and philosophical observations and so forth and so on. I enjoyed the second half a lot more than I did the first half.
What was it like the what was it that really was a turning point for you?
I just remember looking at the Kindle and seeing it was about 52%.
So when you get to the 52% mark in the Kindle book, you know that you are at Jim's turning point.
Yeah, when it started to move forward, let me see, when Duncan and Jessica went to Seleucia,
yeah,
and that made me curious, wondering, okay, what are they doing there? What's going to happen to them? How is Wencetia going to deal with this? Are they going to help? Are they going to sabotage the plans? And just all that stuff.
Yeah. I'm ready to talk about characters.
Let's talk about characters. Let's go. Let's go.
Characters. Okay.
Yeah.
Leto the Second.
His character seems the most straightforward.
Agreed.
Of all of them.
Agreed.
I mean, he's super interesting, but he's also like, I don't know. I felt the least mystery around him.
Well, he is the most, in my opinion, like Paul.
Yeah.
And not talking his storyline, but he's the guy that seems to be every move is pre-calculated, and he knows kind of where he's heading, and because of that confidence, there's no sense of mystery. Oh yeah. So how does he survive the cats? How does he survive when he's captured? How does he? I mean, there is some mystery in this whole becoming the worm. I mean, all that's interesting, and he was certainly fun to watch. But it wasn't. He is. I agree. He's much more straightforward as a character than maybe some of the other ones.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of get him kind of like right away. There's not much mystery to. I mean, until he starts to go out for the golden path, like he's pretty straightforward. Because he tells you everything he's thinking when you get to his parts. So,
right.
What were your thoughts on Leto, Jim?
Yeah. Well, as you say, pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot of mystery there. A little bit spooky because he's just a kid.
Yeah.
He's got this entire future for the universe all mapped out. He is thinking about things in a very mature fashion. He's thinking ahead, what's going to happen to the spice if we cover this planet with greenery. The worms are going to go away. There will be no more spice. Very neat character.
Yeah, I would agree. What do you think about him hailing his grandfather's namesake? As he's here, he's Leto, and now he's Leto the Second. Does he in any way represent the original Leto?
Not to me.
No.
They're two separate.
Less so than Paul even did. In the beginning, Paul wanted to be like his dad, but by Dune Messiah, he's so far removed.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Then we have Ganima.
Ganima.
Yeah.
She.
The war names.
Yeah. Well, she's a gift of war.
Yeah.
Spoiled war. I thought she became more interesting post-hypnotic trance.
That whole thing was interesting, you know. So they know that there's going to be an assassination attempt, and they suspect it, and after the attack, they kind of make this pact that she's going to pretend that she has actually died, you know.
Yeah.
That Leto actually dies, and there's like a safe word, right, that he's allowed to activate that allows all those memories to come back. But they figured out how to kind of control that, and so that in her heart of heart, she totally believes that he's dead, and so lives that until I guess what, three-fourths of the way through the book or something like that, where that everything comes back and Leto kind of reveals himself, and it's kind of just an interesting transformation. And so that part was fascinating. She's not the character. When I think of Children of Dune, she's not the character that sticks out with me. What does stick out with me is as they're thinking about how they can use the twins and the different, like, well, they can sleep together and then we can have the line go on, or this person can get married to the emperor or whatever, or this other man, right? And so, like, that's kind of an interesting, again, the philosophical dialogue at the very beginning that is where that's kind of at. But
this is also, I think that her character takes a turn from what we've previously seen in the Frank Herbert books of, like, the strong women are the stronger sex in a lot of ways. Like, Bene Gesserit have, like, all these powers. When it comes to Preborn, she's constantly reminding us as a reader that women are more susceptible to abomination than males are, and that they're weaker and it's harder for them to hold back these memories and all that stuff. So it was very different.
Is that a weakness or is that a strength to be able to call on past lives and past memories to help where there would be inexperience?
Well, not the ability to do it, the ability to not become possessed.
I see.
To become abomination, because she mentions several times about how, like when she's around the time where Farad'n is proposed to be her husband, she starts really fighting with her inner people, inner memories, and then especially also as well when Chaney takes over for a little bit when they play parents, and Leto realizes, and she states it there too, that, like, for whatever reason, females have a harder time, preborn females have a harder time suppressing the inner voices. And
again, we only have like 3 preborn to go off of, right?
Right, but they're talking about, because I guess all the other preborn were also probably female. I don't know, you just assume. So I guess the Fremen have dealt with it before since they just killed them or whatever. But I just thought that was interesting because she came off as a little bit weak. I mean, she's strong, yet she constantly admits this weakness that she's battling against in her mind.
Does Leto II also have this battle?
Well, yeah, to a degree.
To a degree.
I mean,
so it's not just females that deal with this.
No, I mean all preborn, but she says she's more susceptible to it.
Oh.
Because Leto's able to overcome it.
Right.
And even so, like with when he channels Paul, and he's able to suppress Paul, and then he has to convince the presence of Chaney to back off out of her, and he's like, I can't ask you to do that again. Obviously, you're not able to handle it. So,
right.
I don't know. I just thought that was interesting because usually it's all like and even with Jessica, we see her like weakened with age and not as much of a power being that she was before.
I always think that Jessica appears much stronger for me in the Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert books than she does in the Frank Herbert books. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just my perception as I think of it.
No, I would have to agree with that, Scott.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with that.
He comes across strong. I mean, you just look at Winds of Dune and the decision she had to make on what Caladan, right?
Yeah.
And knocking off those 10 leaders. I mean, she's a very strong woman.
Yeah.
She walks into the palace and frees Irulan and has Alia kind of accept that, right? But you don't see that sort of a person here in this book.
Right.
But we're dealing with, in the case of her, of Jessica, she's got to walk eggshells around Alia.
Yeah.
Because Jessica, I think, knows that Alia is abomination, is possessed, and that she could lose her life at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
One wrong word, one wrong move, and boom, it's over.
There's also this whole thing. I mean, we're talking about Jessica.
Yeah, we might as well transfer into Jessica here.
Sure.
Yeah. There's also this whole thing of her going back to the Bene Gesserit. It seems so out of character. I mean, especially, and I know, whatever, especially when you reinforce it.
She doesn't go back, though.
Well, I mean, she's still, I mean, it's like on the fence.
Right.
Like, through most of the book, you're wondering if she could go, but if she's, like, working for them, she's not, she's kind of, like, on the fence about it herself.
Do you think that's a way to play the Bene Gesserit, though?
Probably.
I mean, we're talking about political power and the political positioning and trying to make sure you know who your enemies are and who's for you, who's against you.
Well, she might also be picking and choosing the better parts of all the philosophies, that she understands. And okay, I'll use this, I'll use that, and she doesn't have to totally align herself with anything.
Yeah. I just feel like at the end of Children of Dune, I mean, at the end of Dune Messiah, like, she was in a place where you almost could never imagine her donning the Abba robes again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, she was either Fremen or she was her Duke's lady, and that was it. She wasn't. Bene Gesserit was her upbringing, but she would never don the Bene Gesserit robes again. Even at the end of Dune,
Oh, yeah.
But something happens here between Dune Messiah or even Winds of Dune and Children of Dune, where when she arrives back, she's in full regalia for the sisterhood.
Well, now I'm a little bit shady in this because it's been about a month since I read the book. When does the Reverend Mother get killed? Or not the Reverend Mother? Who's the mother that the sister, the big central mother that gets killed? Mohiam. And when does that happen at the beginning of Children of Dune, or is that in Dune Messiah?
It's in Dune. That's in Dune Messiah.
That's in Dune Messiah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that may have any impact on her.
Well, that's her mom, so maybe. But
maybe
she also hated her mom. She had like a love-hate relationship since she was also her teacher.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's a curious question.
No, I don't have it. I don't have an answer.
And Roland said in the chat room, and I agree that, I mean, maybe our perception is a little bit changed because of reading Winds of Dune. But he says, I feel like there's a book missing between Winds of Dune and Children of Dune, and I do as well. I mean, Winds of Dune had some cliffhangers that weren't never addressed with Shaddam's army and stuff like that. But like specifically with Jessica, there's something missing.
So we need the Book of Jessica.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Book of Jessica, Brian Herbert, you need to get on that.
Yeah.
So right after this next school book, this is the next book you need to write.
Or as soon as you're done listening to this podcast.
Right. Go right to it.
Yeah.
So we moved into Jessica here. Anything else you want to say about Jessica and her role here?
Well, I mean, we can branch off to Duncan or Farad'n from her.
Yeah, why don't we? Let's do Farad'n because I find him kind of an interesting character.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jim. What do you think of Farad'n?
He was a lot stronger character than I expected he would be, and I think that's because of his father. Of course, as we recall, he was rather badly executed.
Yeah.
I expected him to be weaker, and he seemed to start out as a weaker character, but gained strength as he went along, and finally stopped listening to his mother and started thinking for himself.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, all through the book, I was expecting him to wind up with a knife in him somewhere. It was kind of a surprise and a twist to me that didn't happen. Thinking about how Ghani was talking about wanting to do this guy really good all through the book.
Now remind me, is it at the end of this book that he has the title change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if they revealed that here or if it was like in
the next book. Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
He becomes Harak al-Ada.
He's like one of the guys who writes most of the quotes in this book.
Yes.
Yeah. Like kind of like Irulan history guy. Yeah, I liked his development as well. I mean, you see this kid that you almost kind of want to root for in the beginning, but then for a split second after denouncing his mother, you're kind of like, well, maybe he is power hungry because he's very intelligent. So he's working the system to like get the most out of it. He's kind of like,
right.
Well, this is the hand I've been dealt. Like, I might as well just go along with it and use it.
Mm-hmm.
And then after his Bene Gesserit training, he kind of like changes again and decides to go back to his other way of being more, marrying Ghani but not being her husband kind of thing.
Right.
Taking an Irulan type place and being okay with his new position. I thought that was very, very interesting. I like him a lot in the movie as well, which we'll talk about next time. He's a lot tamer in that, but at the same way, that demeanor fit the character.
Dude, that one scene, since we can now transition into Duncan, when they have Duncan bound and he cuts his wrists up through and they're like, oh man, I just kind of cringed at that. Who at the sugar wire.
Yeah.
But so, what did you think of Duncan in this book?
Well, obviously the honeymoon is over.
Yes.
He is shook up when he sees it that she's changed. I can't even like he goes from seeing the person he loves to like completely repulsed when he sees her and heartbreaking every time he sees her. And I like that they kind of explain that his eyes give it away with her aura or whatever before like he picks it up in her personality. He realizes that it's not the same person because she looks different. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like he had become a much weaker character in this book. He had forgotten his training, and he just didn't seem to be himself.
He's more emotional.
Yeah, way more emotional.
Yeah.
Well, he's not himself. He's hate. No, I know what you mean, Jim. I'm just
yeah.
No.
Good.
No, Duncan for me. This is when I think of Children of Dune. He's not one of the characters I say, "Oh man, he was awesome in this book." He was good. He's like some of the books you get in here and you run to the characters you run into before, and like, oh, there's a familiar face. I'm gonna, and you're kind of paying attention to what's going on. But again, for me, Alia remains my favorite tragic hero in this book. You see her rise from being possessed with his precognitive and preborn ability, and rises up in the midst to give some sort of mystical essence to Dune, and then into Dune Messiah, and then in Winds of Dune, you kind of see her begin to turn and begin to hunger to hold the Regency together, believing that Paul is indeed dead. And then here she's come full circle and falls tragically at the end. It's just a beautiful story. And that is my favorite storyline in Children of Dune, is to kind of follow her and to see the tragedy again at the end, and Paul's tragedy again too, for that matter.
You know what I like is it's pointed out here, but something they kind of hark on in the other books too, is that like Jessica was this woman of power that Gurney came to desire, and you think, well, Duncan was a young man, he probably was interested too, and I like how she calls him out on that, and she says, you liked Alia because you thought of her as a younger version of me. And I thought there you go. I mean, like, he probably did see a younger version of her and wanted the same thing that his Duke had when he was tempted by the love of Alia.
True.
So.
Yeah. Any other characters before we move into points of plot? We have Paul the preacher. What do you think of Paul the preacher? Preacher Paul? The preacher / Paul?
Right.
I don't know. He just comes and goes and drops these little pearls of wisdom here and there and inflames everybody and then just kind of disappears.
Yeah. And then dies.
And when he arrived at Arakeen, it made me think of Palm Sunday.
Yeah, a little bit.
It did.
Bit.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I could hear it singing in the background. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna.
Yeah. Very much so. And he I think what I found, the part that I was really fascinated is when him and Leto the Second meet. Mm-hmm. That part out in the desert. That whole conversation and where that leads is interesting. And the dialogue is interesting between them.
Mm-hmm.
Something we didn't cover was Leto's loss of love, romance in his life because of his transformation. Like, you see, I mean, this is going to come up later, but you see, like, he deals with he's only 9, for one, but he's already, like, he's tempted by the future with, what's it, Sadia, or whatever her name is, the cast out.
Yeah.
That takes care of. He sees a future where the two of them are lovers, and he's tempted by this over and over and over again until he puts on the skin.
So are you saying this is kind of like a Christ in the desert temptation type thing?
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm not saying
where
that.
He rises above that to become the incarnation of Shai-Hulud.
Well, there's a lot of interesting parallels there.
Well, you know, he does. He becomes transformed into he's the new Christ for the people, so to say.
Yeah. I mean, he's a real God. He's not human anymore, you know, in so many ways.
Well, real gods, maybe just a
realer God than just a guy.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, in their universe. But I'm talking more just as a person sacrificing that. I mean, I hear they mention about even just how it's like genitalia are no longer there because of the skin, and it's just like that. Like, it's a big deal to him that obviously will have psychological things in the future. So.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, why don't we move into some favorite points of the plot, and we can hit anything else above character that we need to hit here. A couple major events that happened in this book. Let's start out with the assassination attempt on the twins. How did this play out for you? How did you feel about it? Jim, why don't you go ahead?
I'll tell you what, that was a scary thing all the way through. Right from the beginning of the book, when they're talking about training the tigers to do what they want them to do, and having the children decoys, and making the still suits so that the tigers would recognize them as something to attack, delivering the still suits, getting the children into a situation where this could be carried out, and then it failing, but still, you know, it caused quite a bit of injury to both of the kids.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It would probably be one of the top story events for me, anyway.
How about you, David?
To me, that whole event, I found that very exciting as well. I'm trying to harken back to not knowing what happens there, and I remember it being a very exciting, like, cliffhanger-ish type of event where I wanted to know what's going to happen next, and every turn of it kind of was surprising, and then especially with, like, Leto's fake death.
Well, yeah, and that whole scene, like, so Ganima is like looking out of the desert and watching it in the distance, and you can see these little figures out there, and he calls this woman, rides off, but she kind of, because she's suppressed and says, "Oh, he's dead, he's fallen," and convinced herself to believe it. We kind of see that through Ganima's eyes, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
The whole riding off.
Well, yeah, Ganima sees the worm, but then she doesn't see him on it.
Right.
She just assumes it ate him.
Right. Right. So it's very, very. It is. I agree. It was a fascinating thing. The whole training of the cat, so the planning of it, to discover who's behind it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How about the erosion of the old Fremen ways?
Well, I think that happens with time. I mean, if any two people in this conversation can relate to this, it's you and me, because we've got the Amish around us.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And just seeing the generations of how that kind of like dwindles off.
We know, and so for people in the chat, if you don't know who the Amish, or people on the podcast, if you don't know who the Amish are this really close-knit and closed community that, predominantly there's Lancaster, Indiana, some areas in Kentucky and Florida that have Amish, and then they're in New York, and they're in kind of their own communities, and for the longest time, no technology. They worked in their farms, horse-drawn machinery. Any sort of mechanism was done maybe through a diesel engine, maybe, and even electricity. They did everything with kerosene and stuff, and in the most recent years, you've seen the influx of technology as people have had to, in order to earn a living, work off the farms. Jobs that require them to be in contact, and therefore they have these electronic devices. And there's a sense where some of the ways are being lost in these communities. Yeah. And it's very not unlike the Fremen, but I don't feel like the loss or the erosion of the Fremen ways is anything new. Like you saw this when who was the planetologist? Leah Kynes, right? And what was his father's name?
I can't think of it. It wasn't Leah. It was.
Was it Pardo?
Pardo.
Yeah. So you saw it even there when he introduced it. That it was already beginning. It wasn't like this isn't just the erosion. This is maybe the continual erosion of it. We aren't just seeing them erode in this book, or it's just a continuation of it in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, because we've got this history to look at, you look back to when the Ishmael showed up and met the Fremen then, and the way they were then to now.
Well, even his introduction is an erosion of the Fremen way.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's been constant. They are getting.
So maybe I don't like the word erosion. Maybe I like the word change, because I think erosion implies something bad is happening, and maybe it is, but there's been change, and the Fremen have been a constant change, and yet more or less have adhered to and adapted to living in the desert.
I think in Stilgar's point of view, it's an erosion.
Oh, definitely.
He gets on a worm to leave and just get out and be a Fremen again. He heads to his old siege, and what does he have? What has it turned into? It's turned into a tourist trap. He's really disappointed. And the way that still suit discipline is no longer being observed like it should be. The atmosphere, what they breathe has even changed. I think it would depend on a point of view, whether it would be change for the better or for the worse. The thing that has always puzzled me with this is that's what they set out to do, was transform the face of the planet. Now we're facing the loss of a way of life. We're facing the loss of the only thing that allows people to travel around the galaxy. But this was done on purpose, and how can they be disappointed when they're achieving their goal?
It's interesting. This plays into, I believe, one of the other points we wanted to bring up, and that was the de-desertification of Dune, right? Mm-hmm. And I think another part is, how does terraforming affect the environment? We're concerned about the worms, obviously, and how it affects them. The talk has been, as the Kynes clan would often talk about, is that Dune at one time was green. It supported life in some event prior to any history that we have or know about. It became a desert, and the worms took over, right? Mm-hmm. and now they're trying to bring it back. Man's tinkering with the ecology of Dune. It's impacting. It's impacting the infrastructure that they've set up. It's not. I mean, the mining of spice, one could argue, is not necessarily, in some ways, unlike the mining of oil. For us. So we mine oil, and we're saying, well, let's get rid of the oil industry. Let's go into a more ecologically friendly thing. It's certainly good for the earth here, but that is impacting so many jobs, so many people's ways of life. So it's different because they're not necessarily, obviously, mining oil is not eco-friendly, but similar ideas, I think, I kind of explored here.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the thing with the Fremen is that to them, this dream was so many generations away that they never thought about that as part of the picture. It was always just like, well, we do this, the next generation will do this and do this and do this. And it was just kind of like a transitional thing that they didn't realize the actual problems that it would cause, because it was just such a dream. And then Paul comes along with the might of the Empire, and just is like, boom, let's do it. Yeah, like it's gonna happen now.
I have the Empire here. We can do this.
Yeah, like I promise you.
Nothing's stopping us now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it just put it so many generations ahead of what they wanted, and then it wasn't, till Leto's realizes it even. He has to set it back to try and help to stop it as much as he can or take control of it. So.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple other events that we can cover here. What about, we have Alia's possession. We've kind of talked about that in a roundabout way. We have the Carino's attempt to regain rulership, as always. Been kind of a running theme here, especially in Dune Messiah, Winds of Dune, and then this. And then later the second's Golden Path.
Well,
anything that those that you want to kind of talk on?
I think the Carino's finally see kind of an end of their struggle to gain power or whatever.
Right.
Acceptance into the Atreides way of life.
Farad'n definitely did.
Yeah.
But Sisha was not willing to let it go.
Yeah, right. And she never, in all the stories, she never seemed like the person who was going to let it go.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's too much to say there.
Yeah.
The Golden Path, there's a lot to be said. I mean, there's a lot not known at this point. So I think we're going to learn more and more about that as we move forward. So
my impression of it is there are a lot of different paths and events that will take place that could lead to the end of humanity, and the Golden Path is going to lead to its continuation.
Correct.
So
the Golden Path is the path to complete unknown. It's a path that brings humanity to a place where prescience is not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And
are you spoiling this for us?
Well, don't they talk about it? I mean, yeah, it's not like it's it's just this path that
Yeah, how it's achieved. Now, if we talk about that would be spoiled.
I'm not going to spoil about how that's achieved.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
So, Jim, Roland wants to know, do you have the Packers game on in the background?
I do.
Is Shai Hulud winning the Packers game?
Right.
No.
Are they riding the sandworms into glory, Jim?
I don't know. There might be some worms, but it doesn't look like it's to much glory, as a matter of fact. As a matter of fact, I think the Pack just lost today, and nobody expected that. And if McCarthy doesn't have a stroke, that's going to be a miracle. So, yeah, it's just not going our way today. So I think I'll take the cheese hat off.
All right. Well, why don't we, Jim? Do you want to take us into quotes?
Sure. So I only found 2 quotes myself.
David, do you have any quotes?
I'll just turn it over to David.
Yeah.
I can say some things that stuck out. I mean, again, the just words and not beginnings of the books is just the part where Jessica calls out Duncan for thinking that Alia was a younger version of her. That was, and then the whole line of sticks in my head. The skin is not my own.
Right.
That just sticks in my head. But there weren't very many quotes in this book that stuck out, mainly because they were very different from previous books. I mean,
so what you're saying is you don't have any quotes.
Yeah, I don't have any quotes.
No. we still love you, David. Still love you, David. Jim, why don't you go ahead with your quotes?
All right, I will. Just a couple of quotes. All proofs inevitably lead to propositions which have no proof. All things are known because we want to believe in them, and that is from the Bene Gesserit manual, I believe, on politics. And another one was, governments, if they endure, always tend increasingly towards aristocratic forms. No government in history has been known to evade this pattern. And as the aristocracy develops, government tends more and more to act exclusively in the interests of the ruling class, whether that class be hereditary royalty, oligarchs of financial empires, or entrenched bureaucracy. And that is from the politics as repeat phenomenon from the Bene Gesserit training manual.
Oh yeah, definitely. Good quotes.
Well, and what it's really neat. A lot of these political quotes that I find throughout the books, I can see it. I can see how things are, especially while you talk about entrenched bureaucracy. We're living in one of those.
Very true. And I think that there's I think the thing that constantly in quotes like that, Jim, is I look at it and say, well, I see truth in our own society. And I mean, this is the thing that I love about science fiction, is that science fiction, even though it's way futuristic, many times function as a commentary to our current society, and you see that here in Children of Dune.
It gives you a lot to think about. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the quotes that I really liked, those are your two quotes, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I didn't want to take away if you had another one. But one of the quotes that I really enjoyed was the one, I forget where it said, but Frank Herbert wrote in Children of Dune, "The child who refuses to travel in his father's harness. This is the symbol of man's most unique capability. I do not have to be what my father was. I do not have to obey my father's rules or even believe everything he believed. It is my strength as a human that I can make my own choices of what to believe and what not to believe, of what to be and what not to be."
Sounds like a statement from the Industrial Revolution.
Well, a little bit. And I was having a conversation with my mom the other day, and she did not obviously ever read Dune, or Children of Dune, but she said to me, she goes, I watched the way my father raised us, and I said there are some things I'm just not going to repeat. And it's the power to change that, the power to change ourselves. I think it very much echoes. I think it's one of the reasons I chose this quote. So,
yeah.
Another quote: "The future remains uncertain, and so it should, for it is a canvas upon which we paint our desires. Thus, always the human condition faces the beautifully empty canvas. We possess only this moment in which to dedicate ourselves continually, the sacred to present, which we share and create."
We're
going to take just a second break here.
Just a second here.
Yeah, hello. I'm in the middle of a podcast. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. So I just want to know, number one, is David staying for dinner?
Yes.
And we're even over until 4:45, so I'm just going to order a pizza.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yep. Well, I'll tell him that he can play on the Minecraft, but he can't watch it.
I know.
Okay, very good. Okay, we'll see where we're at that point. All right, bye.
I already know.
Yeah. All right, good. I love you, bud. Can you shut the door?
Yep.
All right. And another quote that I like, just a small one. "The most deadly errors arise from obsolete assumptions."
Good one.
If that's the truth.
uh, oh, there are I disagree. I'm just the quotes that I have in front of me right now. There are some really good quotes in here. Yeah. Often I must speak otherwise than I think. This is called diplomacy.
Well, I think maybe I was looking for more to come from the epigraphs.
Oh yeah.
Than
I don't think the epigraphs
text
are quite as
itself.
strong in this one.
No,
they weren't.
Yeah.
They really weren't.
Yeah. Well, okay. So where are we at? This brings us up to. Do we need to talk about the poll, or do we going to? Oh, well, actually, let's talk about our closing thoughts and maybe predictions, and then the poll. Let's do that.
Okay.
So, David, why don't you go ahead and lead us into that?
All right. Well, closing thoughts on Children of Dune. I found this book to be really strong, for me, at least, in bringing me back into Herbert's plan. You know, Dune Messiah, first time and this time just kind of just didn't do it for me.
Dune Messiah is a necessary evil, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You need to see Paul's dissatisfaction. You need to see that. You need to travel with him in that journey. You need to see his despondency toward prescience and you need Dune Messiah, but it's not an easy read, and maybe is not written as well as one would wish.
Right. But this Children of Dune just brings me back in. I want more. I can't wait for more. I want to know what's going to happen. It adds mystery back into the series, and yeah, that's it for me. What do you think, Jim?
I think I would have rather have been able to read this book during the summertime when I didn't have so many things going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I probably would have enjoyed it more than I did and gotten into it a lot more, I think, if that had been the case.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Scott?
No, I like Children of Dune. Children of Dune works for me. It holds together for me. The story is interesting. Again, I've said it many times throughout the show that either the story of Alia's descent is fascinating. What's happening with the children? How is as a suspect from the beginning that the preacher's Paul, and they don't really confirm that till much later in the book. And to see him being absolutely a wreck of his former self, I think that there's a lot of fascination in this book. I liked it. I liked Children of Dune. It was a good book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk ratings. Start with Jim. He gave Winds of Dune a solid. I'd read a sequel. What did you think of this book?
I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Okay.
It's not as low as I thought you might go.
Yeah,
actually.
I thought it was going to be a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking as I was reading through up to 52%, I was thinking 2.5.
So
the second half of the book redeemed itself for me by 1 point, so 3.5.
So, like, if you average that out, 2.5. So the second half of the book was like a 4.5, and that equals your 3.5, or not? Or is that not quite the way you're looking at it?
Man, I'm a musician. I can only count to 4. Okay, so don't.
This 5-star rating throws them all the way off.
Yeah, it just blows me away, man.
Yeah, this is very true here.
How about you, Scott?
It's a 4. It's not it's certainly not as low as, I don't even know what I rated Dune Messiah, but it's certainly not as low as I think I rated Dune Messiah. But this is, I look here in Roland's handy dandy chart. No, Dune Messiah I gave a 4.
Oh.
So anyways, maybe that was a mistake. No, it's not. Dune Messiah was a 3.25. So it's better than Dune Messiah.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a solid 4, and the reasons for that is, and I agree with Darren here in the chat. He says might not be the best book in the series, but certainly the most memorable.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
There's a lot of memorable stuff in here.
Yeah.
But however, reading it, there were times where I would read a whole page and be like, I need to read this page again because somewhere on the long line, I just stopped paying attention.
That's never a good sign, David.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a solid 4.
Yeah. So 3.5, 4, and 4. So that's the ratings we need to add into that.
Right. Well, while we're here at the end of the show, let's review our poll.
So our poll last week, Roland, right, said, I found it fitting that we read a book predominantly about women in October, which was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And then he came up with this question and said, throughout the series so far, from the Butlerian Jihad through the Winds of Dune, chronologically, which major female character do you find the most fascinating? And there was a whole list of characters. Kalia Vernius, Gaius Helen Mahayam, Lady Hanrul Carino, Lady Margot Fendring, Lady Jessica, Tessia Vernius, Chani Kynes, Princes, Kate, Serena Butler, Norma Senva, Zufa Sema, Reina Butler, Raquela, Berto Anirul, Lady Helena Rachiz Atreides, Princess Irulan, and Alia Atreides. So I had the poll results. Where do you think they ended up? Who do you think that they came out on as being the most memorable female character?
Jessica.
Lady Jessica. And
let's see where we voted first.
Okay.
I voted. It was hard because it was between Norma and Irulan, and I chose Irulan.
You chose Irulan, okay. And Jim.
I have to admit I'm influenced by the David Lynch movie, and I have the hots for Jessica, so that's all.
Mine, I voted for Norma Senva.
Okay.
Because I was fascinated with Norma and that storyline, and we read the Butlerian Jihad. It was just fascinating. So where did listeners vote? They voted Norma Senva.
Really?
Norma Senva was 37% of the vote.
Wow.
Yep. And second, Alia.
Really?
Alia Atreides got 22% of the vote.
You know why, though? That's because of the naked scene.
That was
fighting the machine in the naked scene.
Yeah, it was Chaney that was naked in the movie.
Yeah, no one was influenced by that.
That's in the movie, but in the
no
book,
one voted for Chaney, so
yeah.
no one cared about the naked
scene in the book.
and the her seeing her boobage or anything like that.
Yeah.
Lady Jessica came in at number 3. So and let me see where Irulan. If Irulan got it, Irulan got number 4.
Yeah.
Less.
I have the hots for Irulan in the miniseries, so I feel your pain.
Oh man,
we're motivated by our hearts.
Yeah, yes. Our maleness.
We're true romantics. We're true romantics.
True romantics. No. So there was actually then a bunch of ties, a bunch of 5%ers. Hakati, the Simek, Serena Butler, and Zufa Senva all came in with a couple of votes.
Did anyone get no votes?
Oh, yeah. So Rena Butler got no votes. Helena Atreides got no votes. Kalia Vernies got no votes. Gaius Mahayam got none. Annabelle Carino got none. Tessia Vernius got none. And Chaney got none.
Well, I'm kind of surprised Chaney got no. And this was, I think his stipulation was, it's to this point from what we've read. What were your thoughts? So yeah, I mean that was interesting.
Yeah, so Norma Senva for the win.
Wow.
We have
a surprise.
Yeah,
it is a surprise.
Yeah, not to me, but
we have a new poll for next month.
I mean, did you see the way that they described her after she had her transformation? She was hot.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
the next month's poll.
We're simplifying it.
It's very simple, down to
two
options.
Two. Jim, you can count this high.
Yeah.
You're a musician.
Yes.
Maybe you can do it.
It's
in German even. So.
Yeah.
Which path would you choose? Paul's path, Leto's path, or watching the Packers with Jim?
Are you gonna put that as a third option?
No,
I bet that's gonna win. I bet that's gonna win. So we're all gonna vote for that.
Now we better clarify here. Are we talking the golden path is Leto's path, or is this Leto the first's path?
So the path with prescience or the path without? Is that what we're talking about?
I think I think it's referring to Leto the Second and Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are we talking about the path of prescience or the path without? Or is that not the...
Well, I think the whole thing is Paul turned away from the golden path.
Right.
So he chose, the different route with the jihad and everything. And Leto went the other direction and took the golden path.
All right.
So
maybe we need to put a little clarification in there what we mean by the paths.
Yeah. So jihad or...
No jihad.
Or golden path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that is our question. So I guess we should wrap up, get out here, and get ready to do a listener show that we're going to record next.
Yeah. So before we go, we just want to remind you that if you're enjoying...
Whoa.
I'm just knocking everything over.
Yeah, hey, there we go.
Go easy there, big guy. Go easy.
David's tearing apart my house today.
I know. I fell down the steps.
Where was he when you were carrying
one step. He missed one step, and I hear this crash, and there's like stuff just rolling around in this foyer.
Where was he when you were tearing that old barn down then, huh?
Yeah.
I know I should help.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, if you're enjoying the show and you like me messing things up and breaking things, then we would encourage you to visit our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/Dune Saga Podcast. There you have the option of supporting us each month financially if you'd like to help us kind of stagger the cost of the things that we do here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great help, keeps us going. You can do anywhere from $1 up, or less even. And there's some nice little perks there. You can get some behind the scenes stuff, be a part of some of our fan conversations, that types of things. So please, if you'd like to support us, visit patreon.com/Dune Saga Podcast.
And
the other way,
and for a limited time only, if you contribute at a sufficiently high enough level and have something you would like destroyed, David will personally come over
and trip over
destroy it for you.
Yes.
I'll do it nonchalantly, like I didn't mean to. I'll just
like
over.
Oh man, I can't believe so like, and this is especially good in maybe in the next week as you're getting ready for the holidays here, and you need something broken so that someone can replace it with like a better version. Like let's say you have an old TV that you no longer want. You see these new flashy, $1,000 TVs that curve around you, and and you want that TV. David will come over and just like say, "Oh man, didn't mean to break your TV, man," and then you can say like, "Hey, yeah, can I get another one?" It's just it'd be perfect.
Yeah,
perfect for that.
Perfect. Yeah,
you better get yourself bonded there, David.
Yeah. Absolutely. Another way that you can support us is by jumping onto iTunes in whatever country you are living in and to leave us a review of the podcast, of what you hopefully you're liking the podcast, but leaving us a review, it just helps, put us into a certain place within the iTunes polls and how they allocate rankings and all that.
Yeah.
And not that we need that. We're going to do the podcast either way, but it's just be nice to get a little bit of a love that direction. So it's a nice way for you to do that. Yeah, and it's great. Obviously, visit us on Facebook. We are on the Facebook. We are. We have our website, DuneSagaPodcast.com. We have show notes. Our polls are there. If you want to call or give us listener feedback and want to participate in that, DuneSagaPodcast@gmail.com. We have our phone number, our voicemail number is 1-260-5777-chat, and you can do that. Or last four is 2428. And I think that's about it. I guess we're on Twitter too.
Yeah, we're also Twitter at Dune Saga Podcast. So any of those places you want to submit some feedback, we have a whole feedback show where we'll talk about anything that you send in and discuss it. Good, bad, neutral, whatever.
But right now we are not letting David near the website because he'll break it.
He'll break it.
He'll break it. Yep. Oh, let's get out of here.
Yeah, so once again for the Dune Saga Podcast, I'm David Moulton.
I am Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood, and may Shai Hulud clear the path before you.
Good.
Oh, that's good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't talk about our predictions, but that's fine.
No, that's fine. Well, you know what? We really don't have to. We're just doing Children of Dune next month, the movie.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so we can do it. We can do it after that, where we predict the next one, because then we'll be kind of into fresh material. For me, I haven't read any of those before.
Right.
All right. Well, so do you want to move right into listener?
Yeah. Do we want to take? I could use a bathroom break.
Okay. For those of you in the chat room, we will be taking a short break. 5 minutes, and we'll be right back.
All right.
Good.
Yes.
Oh, it's kind of funny.
You there, Jim?
Did we get any Patreon supporters?
Yes, we got 2.
All right.
Where is?
Oh, Roland says our next poll next month is going to be on the miniseries actors and actresses.
You're on. Actually,
Wait, we need to use. You know that there's that app, you know, Hot or Not. But we'll do it with like all the characters and do it in all the characters and
like
Dune.
I do really like the guy who plays Paul a lot, like just as an actor in the series.
Oh yeah.
And Leto.
Yeah. Oh, Leto. Well, who plays Leto?
It's James McAvoy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done so much since then, but
yeah,
he's incredible, Leto. Oh.
What's the title of Yeah. Where is children? Where are the? Do you put the feedback up here somewhere?
Hey, it's listener feedback.
Why not see?
Oh.
Oh, there it is. Because I'm blind.
Yeah. So do you have the Patreon supporters?
I would get,
I mean, you can just mention them. You don't need to put them in. I did not split this by who's saying what, so we can just rotate. Here, let me just clarify this a little bit. This is from Roland. And, so Jim, that. I will put it out. Change it. 10. I put the Leland Davidson. We can talk about his tattoo a little bit.
oh, nice.
And David, I'll put that in for you. And did you put the poll up on the website that Roland did, the how we rate the ranking system?
Just on Facebook.
Maybe we can throw it on the website too.
Sure.
Well, we'll mention it here. Then David would even give you a very long email. Do you have the notes up?
I will in a second.
All right.
I mean, I do. I'm on Patreon trying to do this on my phone.
Which is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
You just have to create a file.
Oh, that's a long email. Okay, I'll read this. Oh no, this is Jim. Jim.
Yep.
On listener feedback, we're going to talk about the Ari Fullman wants to make a Jodorowsky's Dune. There's an article there. You don't need to read the entire. I kind of shortened the article, so you guys can read the whole article, but then we'll just talk about it. And bad reviews. Do you want me to read the bad reviews here, or do we want to alter them?
I can do it, or you can do it. Doesn't matter to me.
All right.
I mean, I haven't read them yet, so.
So, bad reviews. Why don't we take every other one, and so we'll just continue with that. And I did something different with bad reviews, just so you know.
Okay. Good. I like a little different. Say that to your face.
Because they. And now explain it. And there's Jim. And David. Where are we at here? Holy Hannah, that's long. And I think there's one more. And it's Scott. All right. All right, very good. We have 14 pages of stuff.
Test. Okay.
It's way more than I expected.
Yeah. Well, some of it's just pictures, and so. Alrighty here.
I got a funny story to tell you.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, the other night we were recording Babylon Project podcast, and
What's that? Which episode?
we were doing A Voice in the Wilderness Part 2, which has a lot of military stuff in. So we brought J.P. Harvey in.
Oh, he's
as
perfect.
as a retired colonel to give us some clarification on the military aspects. And he brought up the loot.
Nice.
What did he say?
I can't exactly remember, but he said something about the loot, and then I just cracked up again. So it's getting everywhere. Hey, Scott, are you keeping up on Dune Saga Babylon 5 at all?
I am at episode 17.
Oh, okay. Because
So where are you at in recording?
we just finished recording. It would be episode 19, Voice in the Wilderness Part 2.
So I'm behind a little bit. I think I got caught up on our Ireland trip. I watched like a bunch of episodes that got me caught up. So how close are we to the end of season? How many more do you have before the end of the season?
We've got one, two. We got 3 episodes, and Raul and I were talking about putting together a roundtable discussion of Babylon 5.
Okay.
And probably including yourself, for sure, if you're interested.
I'd be interested.
Okay. David, are you into Babylon 5 at all?
Actually, I just finished Breaking Bad, so it's on my list to start watching it and listening to the podcast. So
Okay.
I've only seen episodes here and there, but I'm about to be into it. So,
Okay.
There you go.
I mean, I'm way behind because I'll just be starting it. So
Yeah.
But I generally only watch like one thing at once, and then I kind of binge it, and I wanted to follow along with the show. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you add these 2 names to the Patreon area?
There's nothing here, but could have been.
Mark.
All right. What?
Mark MARC -IDS. Markitis.
Got it.
And Matthew.
Right. Very good.
I can keep my.
Do we have any additional, or are these just new?
Those were the 2 new ones.
2 new ones. Okay. All right. Are we ready to go?
I am.
All right. You ready to go, Jim?
Yes, I am rolling.
Do you want to give us a count?
Sure will. 3,
Alrighty.
2, 1.
Welcome to the Dune Saga podcast. I'm David Moulton.
I am Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood.
And this is our listener feedback show for Children of Dune.
Children of Dune, baby.
Woo!
That's right. You can let your feedback, you can leto your feedback. You can let your feedback, or give us your feedback is a better way of saying that, by calling 1-260-577-CHAT. That's 1-260-577-2428. You can obviously email your thoughts, put it as an MP3, or do it the old-fashioned way and type it out in email. Can you imagine that's old-fashioned now? Please, we don't have snail mail, so don't send it to us the real old-fashioned way. Or if you're back in Jim's day, don't chisel it in stone, okay? But email's fine. You can just email us your thoughts, and we would be happy to include them into this discussion. Also, you can leave your thoughts on Facebook. Or if you're back in David's old-fashioned day, the MySpace. We don't have a MySpace, sorry. But do the Facebook. Leave your comments there, or you can hit us up on Twitter. We've included comments from all these locations in our feedback show tonight. It is going to be an awesome show here tonight.
Yes.
And my understanding, David, is we have some great supporters, some listeners, like all of you that are listening right now, that have said, you know what? We want to help support the podcast and maybe get content a little bit earlier than maybe we get it, because there's some perks to supporting, right?
Right, that's right. So our Patreon, which is at patreon.com/Dune Saga Podcast, is a place where you can help support us financially if you're enjoying the show. Any amount is fine, and you can do it worldwide. It's a monthly subscription, and we have some perks there, different levels that you can read on the site. We have 2 new Patreon members that are helping us out and supporting us financially, and that's Mark Ides and Matthew. So thank you, too, for stepping up and kind of helping us out.
And thank you for those of you that continue that we don't mention every month, because you've been supporting the podcast financially. We love it. You do not find us. We do not try. Hopefully, we don't come across as begging for you to support. We love your support. Whether you just write in, you listen to us. That's awesome support. Yeah. But if you just want to take it to the next level, it'd be we love that.
It just helps us offset some of the cost of making this program available to as many people as possible.
Absolutely. We have an app available, the Zogpod Collective app. And I think I'm behind an posting episode of Dune, but you can find most of your Dune podcasts there, and it's another way to kind of get involved, and you don't have to remember that phone number right at the beginning, because it's included right in the app, as well as email, Twitter, and so on.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's jump into our reviews here, and I think, Jim, you've got the first one, don't you?
Yep.
Yes, from our good friend Roland. He says, "Hi, David, Scott, and Jim. I really enjoyed Children of Dune. I felt it was more akin to the original Dune than Dune Messiah was. This is my second favorite book we've read so far, only behind the original Dune. I easily give this book a 5 out of 5, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Leto's 4,000-year reign goes, and finding out what was this Kralizak is, finding out what this Kralizak is. I'm not sure what that is.
So do you know, David? Because I'm with Jim in this.
I don't remember what it. I mean, I just from Children of Dune. They say it's like the Armageddon for the Fremen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
All right.
Top 5 moments from the original Frank Herbert Dune trilogy in chronological order, coming right up here. Paul and Jessica's sandstorm escape from the Harkonnen attack in Dune. Paul's battle with Fade Rautha in Dune. Paul defending Leto and Ganima from Bijaz shortly after their birth by using the eyes of Leto.
That was
Dune
cool.
Messiah. Yep. Laza Tiger attack on Leto II and Ganima in Children of Dune, and Leto II placing the sand shroud on his body and becoming superhuman in Children of Dune.
Those are good moments.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have an additional comment to make about the Winds of Dune. I remember appreciating Paul of Dune while reading Dune Messiah. However, I felt the opposite about Winds of Dune while reading Children of Dune. There were several storylines that Winds of Dune set up that was never reconciled. And those are, Jessica left the Bene Gesserit in the Winds of Dune, and now suddenly she's working for them again in Children of Dune. Shaddam was building up a Gola army in the Winds of Dune, and now suddenly he's dead in Children of Dune. Irulan's loyalty to the Atreides was wavering in Winds of Dune, and now suddenly she's completely loyal in Children of Dune. And granted, this is probably because of the books Brian and Kevin failed to write, but as long as those books are in limbo, I'm going to feel this way.
So let's talk about this in reverse a little bit. I'm kind of with them on this, and we talked about in the other podcast that there are some obviously unresolved storylines.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like there is a third Dune book that should be in there, whether it's the Book of Leto II or the Book of Jessica, whatever you want to call it. That these storylines are left hanging, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't have much more to say than I agree that I think I even said it felt like I was missing a book.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. Jim, any thoughts on what he's saying?
Yeah, I would agree for the most part. Maybe not on Jessica left the Bene Gesserit and then is working for them again. I don't know if she's going quite that far.
Yeah, I'm not sure she's working for them at this point, but.
But yes, the Gola army is a mystery, and Irulan, I don't know. Maybe she went back and felt like she had it better than a lot better than she thought she had originally.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely correct. There are some dangling things going on there.
Yeah, and I think the top 5 moments that he gave were all moments. Any moments you feel that he missed that could have been in your top 5 if you were to create them, David?
Moments that he missed that would have been in my top 5. Maybe the blasting through the shield wall.
Yeah, that was good.
Paul blast through the shield wall. That whole scene there.
Like even the final battle itself, like apart from Fade Rautha, but everything up to that.
Yeah, that whole part there. I don't know. I think that's probably. I mean, he kind of covered like everything. Kind of really stands out hardcore to me in those.
I think the nuke blasts for me when Paul loses his eyesight and that whole scene. When he reveals that he can see, anyways.
And he's like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you, Jim?
Perhaps Paul's battle with Jameis should get honorable mention in there.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Again, a lot of good moments in this trilogy that would be hard pressed to pick just one. By the way, the battle that he's talking about, the Kralizak, is the battle at the end of the time. Roland and Darren are both mentioning it. Leto mentions it apparently several times. Leto II. So.
I missed that.
Any other comments on Roland's? What about his rating of a 5 out of 5 for this book?
Well, I mean, it's less than his rating of Winds of Dune. That was
Yeah, it was 10 out of 5. 10 out of 5. I wonder if he would change that rating now that he is based in that. All right, well, let's move it, David. Let's move on to yours. And your really is, I guess you had this conversation with Leland Davidson, and we're going to have to include this picture for this to make sense for those listeners. So we're going to talk about it. It's always difficult whenever you have an image or a visual to communicate that in the podcast.
We'll put a link in the show notes.
The other thing we could do is include it in the show art.
Yeah.
That way people could see it too. But anyways, so go ahead.
Well, Leland sent me a photo, and he said, just wanted to show you my new tattoo. And on his left shoulder, it's the deserts with the eyes in the sky. Kind of similar to, there's a book cover like that, isn't there?
I don't know, but it's cool.
But yeah, it looks really cool, and I just had a back and forth with him, just saying how nice I was still trying to figure out what mine is. I know I've posted some photos on our Facebook of like photoshopped the what I'm thinking of on my arm, and I go back and forth, and how I really like that in the future or whatnot. But his tattoo is really cool, really intricate. My thought was I would want to see that all the time.
Yeah,
back.
No, his back is right. You know what? For your tattoo, I think you should make your arm like the outside of a sandworm, and then when you open your hand, it's like the inner mouth of it. So you're like, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. Anything that would help me in my career life.
Right, your career life. Maybe your love life, social life. Yeah,
Yeah.
People who gravitate toward that. I'm for it.
Sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you will know the trueness of their geekness if they get the reference.
Right.
So I mean,
right. This is a great tattoo. So awesome for you, man. And definitely, when I make my leap, I'll give out that information for sure.
Now, Roland, one of our listeners who has been listening to the podcast from the beginning, said, you know what? Let's see how these ratings, Scott, Jim, and David's ratings, how they line up over time.
Yeah.
And he did this graph of the various novels.
Yeah, and this is in celebration of our 1-year anniversary.
It was a celebration of 1-year anniversary, and it looks like we were we were on the upswing, and then all heck broke loose.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was Dune, and what was it? The Lynch film kind of threw us off, and Dune was the pinnacle, and then we were going up to Dune, and everything after that we've been rating lower.
Yeah, we've been kind of fairly similar. I think that
Dune Messiah has been kind of a pull act and everything.
Yeah, Dune Messiah. You can see in this graph, I went way down and then skyrocketed way up because I loved Winds of Dune. So
yeah,
it's kind of a fun look. He has an average in there as well that you can check out. So we posted this to Facebook, and I'll put links to the.
Yeah, we can put links.
Yeah, they're very interesting to look at and kind of see where you've been in a full year, because sometimes it's like I don't even remember what the last one was.
Well, and you look at it and say, well, you go back and think, if I were to read that book now, having all the understanding of everything I read, would I still rate it the same?
Yeah.
And maybe time, would you rate it differently given time?
Right. Might be interesting when we're done to say, what would your average be? Just guess, what would you rate the whole series, and then put it against whatever we would rate the whole series to what our actual average for the series would be. I think that might be interesting to look at. But this is totally Roland's type of thing. I play some board games with him, and he's like, well, I know that last time we played this, he got a graph of who did what in the board games. So it's pretty awesome. Great detail keeping. So.
Well, this next email we got in from Kim was a Kim show, and I wanted to know. I have you reading this, but it's technically Jim's turn. Do you care, Jim, if I let David read this?
I'll go for it.
All right. It's a long. I'm saving you all the reading because this is a very long email. So
we usually give Jim the long one.
Right. So I was trying to spare you this, Jim, just so you know. So
thank you.
No. So, anyways, go ahead and share this.
Kim Shell writes, and she says, "Dear Scott, David, and Jim, thank you for your podcast. It's been in my ears and the back of my mind for a very big part of the last month. Ever since I discovered it after Googling Frank Herbert, I had just read Bob R. Bogle's Frank Herbert, The Works. You should read that one, or at least the Dune parts of it. It's been a joy, and it reignited my love for Dune, which I am now rereading. You even got me back to continuing reading the Brian Herbert / Kevin J. Anderson books. As I am writing this, I'm 20 pages from finishing Sisterhood of Dune.
You're doing more than us because we did not read Sisterhood.
Yeah, not yet.
We're getting there.
Well, I wanted to share my Dune story with you guys. My first exposure to Dune and Frank Herbert was probably either the comic book or the David Lynch movie, which, by the way, was and is a lot more popular in Europe.
Wonder why.
I know. I don't know. It's a good question.
Psychology behind it. Anyways, go ahead.
I used to study film and loved Lynch. Well, there you go. That's the key there.
That's part of it.
Yeah. I saw all of his movies, and Dune was the odd one out. Or odder, perhaps. It's Lynch after all. But it was fascinating, utterly so. Images and scenes from the movie stayed with me somehow. And the same goes for the expressionistically drawn comic book. None other than A. Young, Bill Scheinlicher? I can't pronounce his last name.
See, we gave you all the hard names.
It's very German. Which you really should do a short podcast episode about. It's a good idea.
Actually, I think it's Polish.
Polish? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Either way, can't pronounce it.
Either way, you're tripping up David.
I would say it's Sankiewicz or Sankiewicz or something like that.
Sankiewicz.
All right. Anyways, go on.
Anyway, I'm rambling in English, which is not exactly my first language. Sorry about that. I hope I'm making sense, and let me get back to my Dune story. I live in Denmark, and I first read Frank Herbert's Dune in my early 20s. The perfect time to encounter Herbert. I was reading Kafka,
Well, that's a depressing guy.
Yeah, Kierkegaard, and a lot of other philosophers. You know, in your early 20s, you think you understand what they wrote. Later discover you don't, not really. As Herbert wrote, ultimately all things are known because you want to believe you know, from the Orange Catholic Bible.
Of course.
Uh-huh.
Well, at this time, I loved science fiction, Star Trek, Star Wars, etc. So somehow, I don't remember how or why, but it must have had something to do with the movie or the comic book. I got my hands on the Dune book. This esoteric, philosophical, yet at the same time exciting and adventurous book seemed to me to be the perfect combination of all things I loved at the time. The story excited me, the language and rhythms of Frank Herbert's writing impressed and moved me like only the greatest of art can do. The chapter introduction quotes, the inherent philosophy, and the layers upon layers of meaning and allegory expanded my mind and belief in science fiction as the ultimate storytelling genre. Sorry about that. As quoted in Tim O'Reilly's book on Frank Herbert, it is like author and critic Samuel R. Delany has written, science fiction is the only area of literature outside poetry that is symbolistic in its basic conception. Its started aim is to represent the word without reproducing it.
Stated. That's right.
Its stated aim is to represent the word without reproducing it. In short, I liked Dune. And I liked Dune Messiah, which to me seemed a tad more confusing. I read these books in English and not Danish, but still fascinating. Children of Dune seemed to me, the first time reading it, to be a bit of a repeat of Dune. And after that, I took a break. Then a few years later, I read Heretics of Dune and thought, this is even better than Dune. To this day, I think that book is the best of the lot. With more action, great characters, superb writing, and thought-provoking comments on religion, ecology, and philosophy. After that, I read Chapter House Dune, also great, and then finally got Emperor of Dune. Now that one took me about a year to get through. I liked it. I could see it was brilliant. But exciting, not so much. That's interesting. She didn't read them in order. Well, that was it then. I later picked up an almost complete collection of Frank Herbert's novels and short stories at a flea market and have been reading one or two of his, luckily many books a year, ever since. No summer vacation is complete without a bit of Frank Herbert. But I missed Dune, and then I discovered the prequels. They took some getting used to. No, actually, they took a lot of getting used to. They had none of Frank Herbert's genius, no rhythm, no sophistication nor subtlety, especially no subtlety. I read them anyway because what they do have is the Dune universe. I love immersing myself in that wonderful world of sandworms and Sardaukar, Atreides, Arrakis, Holtzman Shields, and Harkonnens. But to me, they are more like Saturday morning cartoons or video games in relation to the masterworks of Frank Herbert, like a golem action figure to the Lord of the Rings books. In eventuality, I grew tired of them. Annoyed with the lack of truly great writing. And let me just say that, again, subtlety, which is, to me, Dune. But you got me reading them again and listening to your podcast for a few weeks. Sorry, phone doesn't. But you got me listening to them again. After listening to your podcast for a few weeks, I picked Sisterhood of Dune down from the shelf. There was a bookmark in it, and about 100 pages in, apparently I had given up last time I tried to read it. Your enthusiasm for the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson books made me give it another try. I liked it, didn't love it, but I was entertained, and that is sometimes enough. Perhaps I've gotten a bit older. I've learned to let go and have fun. I usually prefer their stories set in the times of the Butlerian Jihad, set thousands of years before the classic books, because they are obviously less constricted by already set continuity, and because this time of war and action seems more suited to the writing styles of these two co-authors. The books set just before and in between Frank Herbert's books makes the difference between the perspective, writing styles, and abilities a lot more jarring. Book 7, the conclusion of Dune, upsets me. It being so different from the classics, and, well, the story, supposedly based on an earlier outline by Frank Herbert, was overpopulated by unimportant characters, flawed badly, and seemed to forcibly shoehorn in characters invented for the prequels. I'd love to see the original outline. Okay, I'd better stop now. This letter is already going too long to read out loud on the show. Is it not?
Apparently not. We're still reading it.
Let me finish by thanking you for making me reread the original Dune novels once again and continue rereading the newer books. Thank you for the great show, and as Frank Herbert once said, the less we know, the longer the explanation. Best regards.
That is an awesome way to end. Yeah. And for someone who is not fluent in English, or just would not say that English is not their first language, beautifully written.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautifully written. Wow, what do you think about what she says about the Kevin J. Anderson, Brian Herbert novels?
I need a break. You talk, Jim.
I think this person is open-minded and willing to give it another chance, and that's great. I think that's really super. Obviously, she is not impressed with the writing style. I like the more faster pace myself of the new books. But yeah, they're all great, and thank you for the email. It's really cool.
It depends on how you want to view it. I mean, she obviously is into the philosophical aspects of Dune, and you're just going to get you get a lot more of that depth in the Frank Herbert novels, and you do because I'm with you, Jim, that there are times when I try to wrap my head around in teaching all sorts of, frameworks and understanding models of teaching, and legislators are constantly throwing new stuff at us that we got to deal with, which is fine, whatever.
Yeah.
So when I come home, the last thing I want to wrestle with is something deep sometime, and so having a story that can move along quite a bit and move at a pretty good pace. I'm happy for the Kevin J. Anderson and Frank Herbert, the Brian Herbert books, and I'm okay with them. And I still think there is some depth to them. They still have some commentary. It's not like they're without commentary on the world around us. Mm-hmm. Certainly not as deep philosophically as maybe Frank's are.
I really like.
Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Well, like what story is that?
Just how she came about Dune.
Yeah.
I love hearing that story when people have to share it. I think that's really interesting to see kind of how it. How she came about.
Because everyone's so interesting, and so as she comes into it from a philosophical background, she's reading Kierkegaard, of all things. Yeah, talk about the depth that is. And Kafka, I had a student reading Kafka's Metamorphoses. It is just, she's read the whole book of his collection of short stories, and that she said, this is the most depressing book ever. Yeah. Everyone dies and commits suicide.
I'd love to hear why she read them out of order. If you're listening, shoot us a little thing and let me know why you read them out of order.
Yeah. There might be maybe it was availability.
That could have been.
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, well, good. Thank you so much for sharing, and we would love to hear from you again. There were some great thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Jim, we included a news story in here that kind of broke over this past month, and I don't know if we'll ever see it into fruition, but it's interesting. Do you want to share it?
Sure. It says Waltz with Bashir's Ari Folman wants to make Jodorowsky's Dune. And I wish I could do that film, Folman said. The Dune Jodorowsky wanted to do at the end of the movie, he says that he didn't want to do it animated, but he had a 300-page storyline, illustrated for that film. He said the time will come when a great animation director will take this book and make an animated movie out of it. When asked whether this is a genuine chance for happening, Holman says, well, you never know. I'm up for the challenge. I just recently got Jodorowsky's email, and I want to go and meet the guy. I'm busy now with a big project, but I'll give it a shot. I want to see that story. I'd love to see that story. Ultimately, the scale of Jodorowsky's ambition proved to be Dune's undoing. Its script was unfeasibly long, and after 2 years in pre-production, the director couldn't find the funding needed to get it made. A very different version of Dune, produced by Dino De Laurentiis and directed by David Lynch, emerged in 1984 to a less than ecstatic reception, and Jodorowsky's production remains one of the great what-ifs of cinema history. If Folman really could find the funding for an animated version of Dune, the results could be extraordinary.
An animated version of that. That would be interesting.
It'd be interesting to see. I don't know if I could watch this. I would watch an animated version of Dune. I don't know if I want to watch Jodorowsky's animated version of Dune.
It would definitely, if it would be authentic to what Jodorowsky was saying, it would definitely be R-rated.
I don't know if I want to watch anything by Jodorowsky. I talked to some people who saw that one movie he did, and they were just like, oh.
Jim, any thoughts?
I'll tell you what, I really don't feel qualified to comment because I haven't seen the Jodorowsky's version.
Well, hopefully it'll hit Netflix or something here soon. You can check it out.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon, but I'll tell you what, I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah. Well, let's move into our bad reviews tonight, and I ended up ordering these bad reviews. It's typically David's job; he does the bad reviews, but I took over tonight, and I did something a little bit different. This is actually based on one of the person's feedback. The guy gave us a real long email and was listening to the podcast and complaining about some of the stuff we were doing, and he complained about how we always look at the 1-star and 2-star reviews. I said, okay, let's start with the 1-star reviews. And so there are 5 reviews in here. One's a 1-star, one's a 2-star, and it goes on up to the 5-star. We end with the 5-star.
Okay.
So, David, we're gonna have you start. You're gonna start with the 1-star review.
Okay.
And these are all from Goodreads. So these are solid reviewers that really know what they're doing. I'm just kidding. No, but anyway, these are some reviewers, readers like yourself that are into reading and in theory enjoy these books.
Well, Ben says, I think I will vomit on this book, or maybe just dry reek. The one thing that this book taught me was an aversion to fluids. I'll hear another echo platitude on the conversation of. If I hear another echo platitude on the conversation of water, Leto II is simply amazing in the ways that he can repulse a reader. So is his sister, and Jessica and Stilgar, and the preacher. In a rough but adequate generalization, they're all horrible. Frank had me sighing in Messiah, but this is a cringing groan. In fact, let's flush it down the toilet. A fitting end for this book.
So pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like is it told me an aversion to fluids.
Yeah.
Oh man. Very good, very good.
That was a 1-star.
That was a 1-star.
2-star.
2-star. This is from Lisa, 2-star review. This is the 3rd novel in the Dune series, so you should at least read Dune and Dune Messiah before tackling this one. The question is, if having done so, should you continue on at all? I loved the first book, Dune, and rated it a full 5 stars. After the epic sweep of the first book, and an immediate sequel might seem underwhelming. Even just looking at both books, the first book looks very slender compared to the The second book looks very slender compared to the first book's door-stopping thickness. The second book is far more intimate, really in its themes, and in some ways can feel like a bridge to this novel. So I took it down a notch in rating. When we came to the third book, we once again find the novel of epic in length and scope, intertwining themes of politics, religion, and philosophy in an exotic galactic empire in a desert planet, and it's skillfully written. But for me, where it fails is in its characterizations. And after this novel, I just didn't care anymore about the series and no longer wished to continue. A friend of mine, a graduate and student in literature, likes to tease me about my shallow wish to care about characters in books and points out characters can still be unlikable yet interesting, complex, and lend you insight about the human condition. I admit it, that's not enough for me. I want to root for the characters in a book, at least one character. I did in the first 2 volumes. I loved the young Paul and his mother Jessica in the first book and found them easily relatable, and I loved Alia in the second book. I don't like what is made of their characters in the third book. Even admitting the development of their characters have their logic. Moreover, I can't stand the characters that are the titular focus of this book. The children of Paul and Chani, the twin girl and boy Ganima and Leto. Both, like Alia, are preborn. That is, from birth, they are adult in consciousness and intelligence with a knowledge of the lives of their ancestors. By the time we catch up to them in this book, they're 9 years old and seriously creepy. It's Leto that carries the book and loses what little humanity he has within it. And with that went my interest in the series. Because this is well written and does have thought-provoking ideas, I can't make myself mark this down to a 1 star that would reflect my loathing for it. But loathe it, I did. So his main trip up is I couldn't find any likable characters.
Well, I mean, we said that Ganima and Leto were pretty flat.
They are pretty flat. Likable characters?
I still like Leto, though.
I like Alia. But again, she has this tragic end, and if you're looking to root for a character, you aren't rooting for Alia. But she's interesting.
Yeah.
Jim, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I don't recall having any characters in this book that I was rooting for.
No,
really.
I would agree.
So, but on the other side of that, I would agree with, is it her? I think it's her, isn't it?
Yeah,
Lisa. I would agree with Lisa's friend that, a book doesn't have to have somebody that you're for. You can be completely against and hate a character, and the book still is very interesting and fun to read or listen to. But yeah, I can see some of the points here.
Yep. I was for the cats. I was rooting for them till they were killed.
A short book.
It was a short book.
Yeah,
after the death of the cats, I didn't want to read anymore. And Jim, go ahead and read. This is our 3-star rating.
Okay, the 3-star review. This review won't make sense if you haven't read the book. Duh. Okay. The problem with this part of the Dune series is the fact that a classic has evolved into a family story without much of a plot, writing on the comfort of knowing that most of his characters are already well established and well loved. I do not add equally well hated, as all of the bad guys tend to be wiped out at the end of every book in this series. Herbert proceeds to throw in another tale to preach to us more inspiring ideals. I wish he'd waited for a better plot to strike him before penning this book down, though. My parentheses above add a subtle point. The story does not have an overarching enemy. In this book, as in the last, the main enemy is internal. Dune Messiah had the lead character resent and regret whatever he had created, whereas Children of Dune take it to the internal voices level, something which entertains as well as bores the reader. One thing that Herbert has done all too well is to turn a character around by 180 degrees, and yet Do it so slowly and carefully that no one sees the impact. Alia, once a much respected and loved character, I don't know when, come on, is possessed by her inner demons, namely her old ancestor, the Baron Harkonnen. While this may sound interesting, it is a concept unused to its potential. Pardon me for being a gore seeker, but I expected something really brutal once the identity of her possessor was revealed. We're all having trouble reading today,
That's
aren't
all
we? There was no torture, no merciless and bloody murder, and not enough tyranny. Alia always seems to be in enough control, only a bit strangulated by the Baron. If one wants to introduce a concept such as this, he ought to give it enough of an impact by cultivating its potential. But those are just the side.
Can I stop here? Let's take a break. This is a long email anyway, so I'm looking at this, and while I agree to a certain point, the brutality of the Baron, I don't see that we see it as evident. Like, the Baron is all the more evil to me because I've read all the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
But the Baron, there is some brutality seen in Dune, and Alia has certainly that brutality that you hear, like she's killing these people, prisons are full. You see a lot of that stuff in this. Frank Herbert just isn't one to describe stuff brutally. There's very few moments in Frank Herbert books, in the first 3 books that we've read of him, where you see him descriptively grab something gory and describe it, as such.
Well, I think that whole, they kind of, to me, they were alluding that all the people being killed in the prisons and all that stuff was a result of the Baron's influence over her. She was more brutal, however, she wasn't hands-on brutal. And then we saw, she was all about Javed as a lover for him as well.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, do you want to continue reading?
I shall. But those are just the sidelines. The lead characters, Leto and his sister, Ganima, are just boring. They aren't fascinating. Frank could have written another chapter from Alia's perspective about recalling her ancestors, abomination, etc., instead of introducing these 2 characters who make a quick read into a long, drawn-out mess. Yes, I know Leto is needed for the series to continue, but it still annoys. The chapter wherein Leto, countered by the Lady Jessica with her own self, was admittedly rather interesting, as was his transformation, but the rest of him was dull. His character isn't really developed. I garner that it will be in the next book. The part when he roams around the desert on sandworms and encounters various varieties of Fremen, as well as the much less interesting Gurney Halleck, was just a waste of time. Imagining him travel probably to the other side of the planet on a worm was awe-inspiring, but not something I would carry on doing through 60 pages.
Can you jump down to the very last 2 paragraphs? He goes on to kind of analyze characters throughout this, but I think that it wraps it up a little bit in the last 2 paragraphs.
Okay. The story introduces countless new characters who have a hopeless future to ever be developed further. From a Fedaykin called Alib, or something, to another called Buer, or an Amazon called Zia, or to some exiled Fremen smuggler mix-up I never really cared to clarify, called Muritz, or another god-annoying chapter-eating Fremen called Namri. Okay. The end of the book left me considering the awesome power which Leto would behold, and also left me thinking how much better this plot would have been if Ferraden managed to cause enough trouble to give the story more dynamic finish. As I said at the very beginning, the book doesn't have an all-culminating purpose or plot. It just adds some more details to characters we already know and introduces new characters like Leto and Ganima, who we really didn't want to know much about. All in all, it was better than average read, yet nowhere close to its prequels.
So he gave it a 3.
Right, he gave it a 3.
So he had his problems.
He said it was a good read, just not what he was hoping for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of middle of the road.
I get what he's saying. I mean, we kind of said we thought some of the characters were flat.
Right. Well, he agrees. We agree with the twins' assessment.
Yeah.
He did bring up the whole Leto the second and Jessica meeting. We didn't talk about that.
That's right.
That was good. Any thoughts about what he said, Jim?
Well, I thought it was a little long-winded.
Yeah. I gave you a long one. I'm sorry about that.
No, and kind of repetitive, you know. As far, I guess I'm critiquing the review, but yeah, there's some points there that make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, David, why don't you take us into our review number 4? This is the 4-star reviewing. I can't speak here.
This guy's name is David, and I also gave it a 4-star.
Oh, there you go.
So,
well, maybe this was you.
Shh, don't tell anyone. The basic biblical conundrum are the sins of the father really inherited by the son? Yes, Children of Dune went a lot further in analyzing religion and society than the previous book, which I found interesting, but more interesting was the current-day metaphor with society's progress without regard to the costs involved. Who is going to pay for our excess today, and how will they go about fixing them? The preacher seemed a powerful figure at the beginning of the story, but by the end I almost felt sorry for the old guy. Leto striking out to redress the mistake of both his father and his aunt's reigns looks to be an interesting story. I'll enjoy following. I can't say I agree with his views that he will bring an era of thousands of years of peace, but it will be interesting to watch him try. Children of Dune is not something to be read lightly, as you can get through several pages and realize you are completely lost.
David, he's with you.
I know. Maybe I did write this. I found myself rereading sections quite a bit. On that thought, I'm going to take a break for a while, for a little bit before continuing the series, as I find out to be somewhat exhausting.
All right. Every time they see COD, I'm thinking Call of Duty.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up?
What's your ETA?
About 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, are the sins of the father really inherited by the son? This is a good question. We mentioned that in one of the quotes that we talked about, being able to make your own decisions, and I thought that was a pretty good review.
I like they hit that more in the movie. Once Alia says the sins of the parents blossom in their children.
Right.
I like the way she says it.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this, Jim?
Oh yeah, completely agree with it being somewhat exhausting to read.
So you're glad we have a movie after this to kind of breathe before you get into the next novel?
Yeah, it's going to be nice to read something a little bit lighter. As I said before, I really had to work hard to get through the first half of this book. It's not something you can take lightly, and when you are in the middle of, when you're a music teacher, you're transitioning from marching band to concert band, and you've got this going on and that going on, and you're planning Christmas programs and everything else. This is not a book to be reading while you are busy.
Yeah.
You're going to miss, if for no other reason, you're just going to miss a lot and probably not appreciate it as much as you should.
Well, let's hope you're not busy when we get to God Emperor.
That'll happen. Maybe closer to summer, right?
Well, that's the next book that we'll read.
So that'll be in February. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Well.
How's your January to February look?
I think I can handle that.
Okay.
It's not quite as bad.
No,
All
good. Right. Well, we have our review number 5, and Drew Athens rated it a 5, and he said the conventional wisdom seems to be that only the first book, Dune book, is good, and the rest of them are awful. But I found this to be definitely not true in this case. The third book in the series was gripping and exciting. I literally couldn't put it down. Don't listen to what everyone else says. Read these books for yourself and make your own decision. You won't be disappointed. This one focuses on the children of Muad'Dib, as well as his sister Alia, wife in name only Irulan, and the return of his mother Jessica to the political goings-on of Arrakis, and the struggles with the almost cult-like religion which has sprung up around his supposed death, and his sister as his new figurehead. Behind the scenes, there's all sorts of plotting and double dealing between a whole host of characters and factions. And the shocking revelations from the middle of the book on make this one of the best in the series, and it wraps up the first trilogy of the books, and this time period with a bang. He loved it.
He loves it.
He absolutely loved it. This was the icing on the cake for him.
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Wow.
So,
I remember loving this book when I first read it the first time. So I feel what he's saying.
nope, absolutely. That was good. That's it. So that was going from least to I will vomit on this book to make your own decisions, love this book.
That might be a good way to go with the Frank Herbert books, reviews like that.
Yeah, so it kind of gives a balanced look at all the different reviews.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you're saying we can give just bad reviews for the Kevin Jameson and
There's plenty of them.
there are, but there were quite a few for children to do too. When I was looking through, I wasn't, any loss for that.
You know, as I looked through reviews myself, even with Brian and Kevin's books, it's still 85% approval.
Yeah, I agree.
So when David picks out the bad reviews, he's just picking out the bad reviews. He's not picking out good ones.
Well, and it goes to someone. I think one of the emails we read earlier, Kim's email. I said, if you want to play, if you want to experience the world of Dune, this is the only way you're going to be experiencing it. I mean, the estate of Frank Herbert. This is what they've given licenses to, and if you don't want to read more Dune, then don't read Dune. Don't read any of the Kevin Janderson and the Brian Herbert books. But if you want more Dune, this is the only way you're going to get it. And so you can complain all you want, but you're getting more Dune.
Right.
I mean, that comes down to, and if it's not quite the way Frank wrote it, so be it.
Right.
Yeah.
I still come back to in my thoughts when I hear people talk about this, and I say, even when we were interviewed, Brian Herbert said, even my father, everyone was always comparing all the rest of his books to Dune, and he could never measure up. And that just sticks with me as I think through all the Kevin Janderson. No, they aren't the same, and no, they won't be Dune, but nothing will ever be Dune but Dune.
Right.
Right.
That's my soapbox. Getting off now.
Well, that brings us to the end of our listener feedback show.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, if you want to send us feedback, there's many ways you can do that. You can send an email to dunesagapodcast@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/dunesagapodcast, as well as at Twitter at dunesagapodcast. We also have a great voicemail. Should you want us to hear your voice and share that with everyone?
We want to hear your voice.
And we want to, yep. The chat number is, Scott?
1-260-577-2428. And that'll get you in. And that's also available if you download the SogPod Collective app, which is available on every single platform available. You can also attach an MP3 to an email, and that'll also work.
Right.
We love hearing your voice. We don't get a lot of voice females. Voice females are feedback for the matter, and but we're grateful for the little that we do get back, and that we yeah.
And once again, another thanks to Mark and Matthew, our new Patreon supporters. Check us out at patreon.com/dunesagapodcast.
Keep your eye on Patreon. We're going to be putting in a new level where Dave will come and break something for you if you want it. So
just time for the holidays.
It's just time for the holidays, and also not to mention that Jim's still offering loot lessons if you will support the
loot lesson
the $1,000 level. So he is all for that, and so if you really like your loot lessons and want to support the podcast, Jim's all for it.
Yeah.
Or even better, you could give it even higher level and have David come over and break your loot. I mean,
yeah, so combine the two.
Ooh, both of us are visiting.
Thank you so much.
One of these days, Scott, it's going to be your day in the barrel. You know that.
Just wait.
Just wait. I got to watch myself.
Well, once again, thanks for joining us. For the Dune Saga podcast, I'm David Moulton.
I am Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood. And may Shai Hulud clear the path before you.
There we go. Boom, 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 boom.
It's done, y'all. It's done, y'all.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a quick look at January?
Well, let's take a look at January and see if we can get a better schedule than we have. The problem is I have no phone, so I can't actually commit.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah, let's wait till tomorrow and talk about that.
Okay, so
Yeah, why don't you? We can throw it around the chat.
yeah, like January
On the chat.
1st, right? Like
January
maybe
1st.
like midnight.
Yeah, midnight. Like, okay,
Well, I'll be
recording.
up.
Yeah, come on. I don't have school the next day.
Yeah.
We can say that we're doing it in honor of our European listeners. They'll be up by that time.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, maybe they
That's
won't
true.
be. It is New Year's.
Oh, we had Darren join us here.
Yeah,
that was cool.
That's right.
From England. So
That-
cool. All right, well, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
All right, hey Jim, it's good chatting with you. Let me know.
Yeah.
Let me know about the Babylon project roundtable.
I'll keep you informed. We're thinking about talking to Wayne and you and let's see, getting JP in on it, and Raul mentioned maybe Rick Snowdy or something. So yeah, there's quite a few people.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So
Maybe I can
and-
join
and-
season 2.
Yep.
yeah, that'd be neat. And just so you know, Scott, I kind of named you as possibly being the moderator on that because you really do a good job.
Oh, well, yeah.
Are we gonna do?
Yeah, we can do the moderator. That's great.
Are we gonna do Inception? Dune takes over.
You mean Interstellar?
Interstellar. That's what I meant.
We can do an Interstellar one. If we do it in January, we can. We have plenty of time.
Yeah.
That way we can spoil it and not worry about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I like that.
That would be fine with that.
Cool. I'm down. You down, Jim?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, and yeah, I'd be happy to do some moderating for it. So.
Super.
All right.
I'll type in my available dates for you guys, and we can figure out what to do.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. Very cool.
Cool.
All right.
All right, man.
All right. Take it easy.
Take care.
Good night now.
Bye. Live event. Save and